Hello, people of Orwell. I first want to say that I will deeply miss gathering with you this Sunday, and I am praying for our church each day. You are all in my thoughts, and I can't wait to see you again. We are all doing a lot of thinking and praying, I'm sure. Times like this, though, tend to fill our thinking with thoughts of doubt, fear, worry, and frustration. Because of this, over the next 12 days, I will be sharing from the book of Philippians something else we can fill our minds with: joy. Yes, even now in our social distancing and confusion, we can fill our minds with joy. After all, this little book's leading words are joy, thanksgiving, and rejoice. Why is this so surprising? Well, if you want to talk about social distancing, get chained to a guard all day long, every day for 2 years, unable to leave the house ever, all the while facing the possibility that the end result of this social isolation is death. Would you rather have your puppy, your cat, little children, spouse, or a grumpy Roman guard? So how does Paul maintain such joy in such difficult circumstances? He has the mind of Christ. And having Christ as his mindset completely shifts his focus. The first place we see this shifted focus is in Philippians 1:3-6. I thank my God in all my remembrance of you, always in every prayer of mine, for you all, making my prayer with joy, because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. And I am sure of this, that he who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. First, we find joy by centering our thoughts on others and praying for them. By centering our thoughts on others and praying for them. Because Paul had the mind of Christ, his focus was not on himself, but on everyone else. We notice surprising things about Paul's thought life in verse 3. He thanks God in all his remembrance of the Philippians. What does all my remembrance mean? Paul is simply saying, I think about you all, and then I thank God. He is saying, I think about you guys all the time. It's food for thought that a man on house arrest, chained to another person all day, facing death, is busy thinking about everyone else. That's the mind of Christ, and that brings joy. This is a time where we can get caught up thinking about the government and most of all, ourselves and our situation. Take a moment today and think about those around you, what they have done for you, and what they are experiencing right now. But like Paul, to find true joy, we don't stop there. When others came to Paul's mind, there wasn't just a passing thought, but he'd pray for them. This is a significant part of joy. Joy comes from thinking of others and thinking about God in our circumstances as well as theirs. Put these two thoughts together and we get prayer. I encourage you to take this time away from one another to more frequently petition God for each other. I had a time in my life where I was living out in Chicago by myself, and my mother had breast cancer. I was having a hard time finding a job, and I fell into a great depression. And while I was there, my mother and my grandmother, who were thousands of miles away, began to pray the armor of God onto me each and every day. And I believe it was through their prayers that one day I woke up and the depression was gone. Their prayers did more than any class I took, book I read, or person I talked to. Prayer aligns us with the action of God, and that brings us peace, which in turn leads to more joy. So set your mind on others and take some extra time to pray for one another. Second, we find joy by centering our thoughts on what God is doing through our circumstances, not what man is doing. We find joy by centering our thoughts on what God is doing through our circumstances, not what man is doing. Paul prayed fervently for his friends in Philippi because he was confident of this great truth. He who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it unto the day of Christ Jesus. Paul's focus in his difficult circumstances was centered on God and what God could do. Paul's influence was limited, but his faith never wavered that God was working. There is not a time frame, physical space, person, or circumstance that God is not working at. God is always at work, molding us more and more into the person he wants us to be. God is using everything to teach us and change us. Romans 8:28 tells us that all things work together for good for those he called according to his purpose, to be conformed to the image of his Son. Isn't that an amazing thought? God is using COVID-19 to make us more like him. He wants to change us, not hurt us. Build us up, not bury us. Design us into something better, not destroy. Create even greater faith, not fear. Now, if God is working, that is reason for joy. So pray, pray, pray. Love, love, love. And trust, trust, trust.